All right, hello everyone, and welcome back to the WBA Canada YouTube channel. I'm joined today by West Bromwich Albion legend, Chris Brunt. Chris, how are you doing today?
Good, thank you, Ben. Yourself?
Oh, I'm doing good. So I thought I would open by talking about one of my very first West Brom memories. Obviously, I'm 18 years old. You signed with the club in 2007, and I was born in 03. So realistically, there hasn't been a lot of time in my life where you haven't been a part of West Brom. And the 4 years before, I don't remember. So one of my first memories of West Brom, and I've said this a couple times on my page, is a game against Liverpool, and you ended up scoring two penalties, and one was at near the very end, and it ended up winning the game. And it's something I've always remembered, and it's one of my great memories of the club. You became an idol to me the way you played. Obviously, I'm left-footed as well, so I played left mid. I love to whip in a good cross, and then eventually, once I got to the point where the people were getting faster than me, I moved to left back and started to just facilitate from the back. My first question to you is, how did you get into soccer growing up in Northern Ireland?
Just basically just playing with friends in the street, and there was no sort of academies or anything. It was all just sort of like boys clubs and stuff. And my cousin's 7 years. My side of the family, there's only three boys, so it was me, my cousin who's 7 years older than me, and my younger brother who's 7 years younger than me. So when I was younger, I sort of grew up playing football in the garden in the street with my cousin and a few of his mates. So I was always playing with kids that were a bit older than me, and just sort of took off from there. Really, just I was always into football. My dad played he played rugby as a sort of just for at an all right level, not professional, but at a decent level in Northern Ireland. And rugby never really interested me. I used to go to his rugby matches on a Saturday and take my football with me. And yeah, luckily enough, one of my cousin's pals played for a boys club in Belfast, and he sort of recommended me to the boys club, and just went from there really. And yeah, that was it. It was we didn't really have you didn't have any sort of competitive games until under 11 at that age. So I sort of trained for a couple of seasons before that and played a few times for the older age groups. But yeah, that was pretty much it.
Yeah, obviously, it's great to be able to play, and I always feel like that first time you get to play, in your early years, you're always visualizing what this could become, and it's always a big dream. And my next question is, was there a player when you were playing growing up that was your idol? You know, if you were scoring a goal, you'd picture yourself being that player?
Yeah, well, I was a Man United fan growing up, so. No, not necessarily George Best, because he's probably a bit. Obviously, I was probably a bit before my time.
Too old for you. You're too young for that.
Yeah, he's probably a bit before my time. Obviously, I've seen all the videos and stuff. If you're from Belfast, you tend to when you're younger. But no, my era was sort of more probably early Mark Hughes, Eric Cantona. Ryan Giggs was my favorite player growing up. So just obviously, as a left-sided player, he was the best one, and I always loved watching him. But as I was pretty quick as a wide player when I was a kid, and I had a knee injury probably when I was about 12 or 13. It sort of slowed me down a little bit, but then you had to sort of adapt your game. But when I was a kid, I used to always thought he was my favorite player, and I tried to play that game really.
So I'm guessing it's safe to assume number 11. Obviously Ryan Giggs' number, was that intentional? That's your player, that's who you wanted to have the same number as?
Yeah, sort of. I don't know, I never really thought much of it, to be fair. I think just being a left midfield player back in the day, obviously when it was 1 to 11 tended to be the wide left player, didn't it? So it sort of just ended up that way. But as I got a bit older in my career, when they gave me number 11 when I was at Sheffield Wednesday, and I wasn't really expecting it because I'd just signed there, and I was sort of expecting just a higher number, but they gave me number 11. And then when I first went to West Brom, Zoltan Gera was still there, and
you were 29.
I wore 29, yeah, and that's I just had to pick it. There was a few numbers left, and I just picked that as that's the date of that's my wife's birthday. The date she's 29th of August, so that's why I picked that. And then the following season's all tan left, and I asked to be number 11, and Tony Mowbray gave me it, and sort of from then on, it sort of became just a regular thing. You know, even when I was playing left back for the international team, they always give me number 11 as well.
That's great. So obviously you had trials at Glasgow and that didn't work out, and then you ended up at Middlesbrough. What was it like to make that transition and take the leap to pursue your career in a different country?
Yeah, it was difficult, obviously, at the start. I mean, I always thought I was going to Rangers, and I'd been there loads of times from when I was sort of 10 right through till 16, and then they released me quite late towards the end of that season, and then you have to go into something new, really. You know, I knew the guy that scouted for Middlesbrough in Belfast pretty well. He lived near my parents, so he was always on at me to go and have a look at Middlesbrough, and he wanted me to go over, but I enjoyed going to Rangers at the time. So thankfully enough, he straight away said, "Oh, well, I'll take you over to Middlesbrough for a few days." And you know, I trained for about 4 or 5 days, and to be fair, they offered me a contract pretty much that week. And the following week, my mum and dad came over with me, and we sorted it all out. But then obviously moving away from home is difficult, obviously at 16, because you know that's not. No, I suppose it's still reasonably young, isn't it? I know, like, obviously culture over in the States and yourselves, do people move like quite far away for college and stuff like that? But you know, obviously moving as a young lad into somebody else's house is a bit weird. But I was very lucky. I got a really good family to stay with in Middlesbrough. And, you know, they really, really looked after me, and that made it a lot easier.
Yeah, I can't believe that, because you know, I'm 18 and I can't picture. I know I'm going to be going off to school in a couple of years, but I can't picture going to a new country and not really being with my parents. And I know you could probably phone them, but it's not like nowadays when you can FaceTime anybody, and you know, it seems crazy. So for you made it through the Middlesbrough Academy, but then you ended up on loan at Sheffield Wednesday. So how was that first taste of playing first team football with Sheffield Wednesday?
Yeah, I actually, that sort of, everybody sort of says somewhere that I went on loan. I actually got Middlesbrough actually released me, so I when I first went to Sheffield Wednesday, I was a free transfer, really, just for a couple of months. So it was brilliant. Sheffield Wednesday is a massive club, obviously, like everybody knows that. I mean, it's a bit of a sleeping giant, really. And it was like from the first couple of weeks I trained down there, the lads were all really good with me. I played a couple of reserve games and managed to score a couple of goals, and a couple of free kicks. And then one weekend the manager they weren't doing very well, and the manager pulled me and said, because I'd sort of been playing as a central midfielder, really, at Middlesbrough, not really wide. And the manager pulled me and he said, can you play wide left? And I was like, well, yeah, I played there all the time when I was a kid. Yeah, no problem. I'll have a go. And about 10 minutes into my debut, we got a free kick in the edge of the box, and I scored. And it sort of just went from there. Like, obviously in front of 20-odd thousand people at Hillsborough, compared to playing in an under-19 game at Middlesbrough, it was brilliant. And yeah, I had a really good 3 years at Sheffield Wednesday. I really, really enjoyed it.
That goal, that moment when you score a goal, I don't think you can ever replace it, right? And I think that's really, you know, it's one of those things that within the game, there's nothing better, right? You can make a great save, you can make a great tackle, but scoring a goal is just that feeling.
There's absolutely nothing like it. I mean, I think when you get a bit older, you become more appreciative of other things like saves or blocks or somebody defending properly or doing their job, just people doing their jobs properly on the football pitch. You sort of become a bit more appreciative of it. But you know, especially when you're younger and you're just new to it, like scoring a goal in front of a packed stadium is unbelievable. And you know, I probably didn't score as many as I would have liked in my career, but you know, I was lucky enough to score a few important ones. And yeah, there's no better feeling.
Yeah. Another thing that makes you appreciative of the defensive things as being in a Tony Pulis team, but we'll get into that in a little bit. Now, we'll switch gears a little bit here because obviously you ended up going to West Brom. But when did you first hear about obviously the transfer, and what were your first impressions?
Well, that summer at Sheffield Wednesday, I'd had a couple of interest from a couple of clubs. I think Manchester City actually just before they had all the takeover with all the big money from Abu Dhabi. So and then Stuart Pearce, we played them in the cup for Sheffield Wednesday that year, and Stuart Pearce was the manager, and he'd made a couple of inquiries, but then he got sacked. So then Laurie Sanchez was the Fulham manager that year, and he signed quite a lot of the Northern Ireland players from the Northern Ireland squad. And they tried to sign me as well, but Sheffield Wednesday rejected the bid, and they ended up signing somebody else. So it was a bit weird, really, because like I really liked Sheffield Wednesday, and I really liked Brian Laws, who was my manager at the time. But I think that some of the football club didn't do very well in sort of recruiting players, in my opinion, anyway. And we were sort of going to struggle, I thought. So I think as well they weren't doing very well financially, so they were just sort of holding out for as much money as they could get, really. And when West Brom came in, my agent knew Tony Mowbray very well because they're from the same area.
Yeah.
And obviously they got all the sort of the financial side of things sorted out. We went down and I spent a few hours with Tony and just talked about football and bits and pieces, nothing major. And I'd played against West Brom twice the season before for Sheffield Wednesday, and we'd managed to beat them both times, and I'd played pretty well in both games. So I knew what I was half stepping into, the squad of players and stuff. So it was a no-brainer, really. I think for everybody as well, for me and for Sheffield Wednesday, it was probably the best thing that could have happened, really.
Yeah, and it's always that classic saying: if you can't beat them, make them join you.
Yeah, well, I think that was a bit of it. I think Tony had that sort of approach. James Morrison was similar as well. They played Middlesbrough in the cup the year before, and Mozza played quite well against him. And I think he tried to sort of do that. Leon Barnett as well. Team players that had caused problems against his teams. He stayed. He kept a bit of interest in. So yeah, luckily enough for me, he was interested.
Yeah, and then of course that next season was probably. It will go down as one of the best West Brom seasons ever. Obviously, it's a bit ahead of my memory. I don't remember a terrible amount from it, but I remember bits and pieces. Obviously, a semi-final in the FA Cup. That's not something you do every day, and it's a massive achievement. But I think the thing that most West Brom fans will think of most when they think of your time within that first season was the Southampton goal. So could you walk me through a little bit of what was going on there and how it felt to score that big a goal?
Yeah, well, the first part of the game, the game, I remember thinking I was going to actually play in the game. I wasn't going to be a sub, and because we'd done a lot of work on crossing in training, saying that was a weakness of Southampton. So, and obviously that was a big strength of mine. So I just assumed I was going to play, but then I didn't. So I was a bit annoyed, to be totally honest, at the start for not playing. But obviously once the game wore on and you come on, and I don't really remember too much about it, to be fair. Even now, obviously people send the video to you, or you see it, pictures and stuff, and I really don't remember much of it. I just remember sort of breaking forward and trying to.
It's a good touch.
Yeah, trying to make up a bit of ground to try and get myself in the box, and it's luckily enough it's just fallen for me. Yeah, obviously the first touch probably made it. It was a decent touch, and it meant I was able to hit it, and I just kept my head down and hit it as hard as I could. And I think it was Calvin Davis was in goal for Southampton that night, and he'd been unbelievable. He'd saved everything, or maybe Richard Wright. I can't remember who it was anyway. But he'd saved everything. They were hitting him, going. It just felt like it wasn't going to be our night. And ironically, the one that went in went straight through his legs. So that was it.
He's had a nightmare there, right there. That's one of the. It was an odd one, but they all count the same. So.
Yeah, look, I hit it quite well. Look, after that, I don't really remember anything at all. I just remember going to the corner and getting mobbed by everybody, and a few of the fans from the stand as well. That sort of.
That night was a proper pitch invasion.
Yeah. No, at the end, I just remember trying to get off as quick as I could
Yeah.
before trying
I
to keep
just
hold of my shirt and my boots and stuff.
Yeah. I just watched the you did a reunion with that squad. I think
Oh
there
yeah,
was a bunch of you there, and just sort of to do some background knowledge on it, right? And gosh, that those times, I wish I remember them better, because like I said, I was 4 years old when that happened, and realistically, what do you really remember when you're 4 years old? But there was times around that time I remember going to pubs and watching games, and particularly we would go on a trip to Myrtle Beach every year, and
mm.
we'd go to the pub to watch the game, and we'd say, "Can you put the West Brom game on?" And they'd always be like, "You want to watch what?" You know,
Yeah,
and then there's always, if they were playing a big club, you'd always get those sort of people who are cheering for the big club looking at you like,
yeah.
so it's an interesting experience, definitely. What was it like to get promoted? Obviously that first year was such a great year, and it was capped by a promotion.
Yeah, it's great. I mean, that's what I joined the football club for, to try and play in the Premier League. That's ever since I was a kid. That's what I wanted to do. I wanted to play in the Premier League and obviously the season we had that year was great. That it was a great set of lads as well. That really worked hard for each other, and we really enjoyed playing as well. I think the thing that sort of, once we got promoted, it sort of killed us a little bit the following season, that we didn't have a massive amount of Premier League experience in our team.
Yeah.
And by the time we actually all sort of got accustomed to it, it was just too late. So I
Yeah.
think if you look at a lot of teams that do go up and down a couple of times, you sort of add a little bit more experience every year, and then obviously I think that probably held us in good stead a couple of years later when we got promoted again. So I think that was probably the one thing that let us down. We just didn't get enough Premier League experience into the squad. But obviously it's easier said than done when you're one of the smaller teams, I think.
It actually shares a lot of parallels to what just happened this past season. Obviously, we got up, it was great, but we spent the money to bring back the players who helped us get up, and then there was not a lot of Premier League experience, and then this, that, and it seemed like a lot went wrong. But I think for those young players, like you said, you sort of need that first experience of it didn't go right in order for you to figure out how to fix it, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think, yeah, definitely last year would have been very similar. West Brom as a club spent a lot of money just being the same team really as they were in the Championship, and it was probably similar the year that we were talking about. Like, it's difficult now though, especially nowadays. When a good Premier League player is probably costing you 35-40 million quid. I mean, and that's. I mean, West Brom as a football club can't really afford to go around throwing money like that around when they're not sure what's going to happen the following season. You've just got to try and be as competitive as you can, and hope that things fall into place. And unfortunately, last year it didn't. But they're still probably in good shape this year to be able to come straight back up again, which is obviously a big part of a club's planning when they're trying to get promoted. You have to prepare for that as well. You have to prepare to. You can't just go throwing loads of money around. Like obviously, if you look at like Aston Villa, Aston Villa spent, I don't know, something like 140 million quid and stayed up by a
By a hair,
goal
by a bad call by
line
the
from the
ref.
manager. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So like, if they had got relegated again, they would have been they might have been in meltdown, like financially. So I think there's a fine line between that and actually sort of going for it when you actually do get promoted.
Yeah. Is there any advice you would give the players from this past year, going into next year and hopefully trying to get right back up, having done it yourself?
I think the league's changed a lot since those last couple of seasons I played in it. From the times when we played in it before in 2008 and 2011 or 2010 or whatever it was. It's got a lot more difficult. There's a lot of quality in that league. It's a tough league, and I think majority of the players that are in West Brom squad know what it's about. So I think obviously with the new manager as well, he brings his own ideas, and he did really well with Barnsley last year. So he knows what to expect too. It's not like Slaven Bilic was sort of coming in as into a bit of an unknown because he'd never managed in that league. Whereas obviously the manager now knows what they expect, and they've still got a good squad of players. Obviously I'd imagine there'll be a couple probably leave just purely to sort of balance books, I would have thought. But
Yeah.
I would probably say they're probably in the situation to be able to keep majority of their team, which is obviously good.
Well, it seems like there's two obvious players, and I'm sure you know who the two are, who I'm thinking about. And maybe that kind of money is what the money that you can get to start to bring some more players in, right? And I think that's always something that a club like West Brom, that's a way that that club can get more competitive, is you profit off of your good signings.
Yeah, I think yeah, obviously the two lads you're talking about are pretty well documented. Like, but I mean, look, that's always going to happen. Like those two lads did well in the Premier League last year, and there's naturally going to be they're going to want to stay there, and there's going to be interest in them. So, like that's what happens all the time, and it's about how I suppose it's if it does happen, it's about who the club get in to try and replace them to become a stronger team again without them. And that's what obviously recruitment departments are for, and things like that. It's a big operation now at a football club. There's not just the 2 or 3 people that choose the players. There's a lot of things that go into looking at it. So look, I'm sure it'll be done well. I hope it'll be done properly. I'm sure they'll be competitive, and obviously after all the COVID stuff as well, there's probably not going to be as much money flying about in the championship this year. I wouldn't have thought so. West Brom should be in. They should be one of the stronger teams, especially budget wise as well, I would think.
Yeah. All right. Well, switch gears again a little bit. A little bit more of a happy topic than relegation. I'd like to ask you about your chant. Ole, 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 Chris Brunt. I want to ask, first of all, when did you first hear of it, and what are your thoughts? Like, that must be a weird thing that they're all of a sudden just singing your name to a song.
Yeah, it can be a bit weird sometimes. Obviously when you're playing, you don't really notice it. And 9 times out of 10, you only sort of sing it at you when you've done something good. So that's probably not a bad thing. Look, I think when you're playing on the pitch, you sort of most things I always try to you just blank it out. You just become sort of noise around you, And look, it's obviously it's great. Like. Growing up as a kid, you never would have imagined that like 30,000 people in a stadium would be chanting your name. So, like obviously looking back now that I'm in the position I can look back on it, it's brilliant. But I think the football club have been very good to me, and I'd like to think that I tried my best for everything for the club as well. So it's nice to be shown a bit of appreciation, yeah, of course. But it's obviously. I was sort of never one for plaudits or things like that. Anyway, I just like to sort of keep my head down, get on with things. But look, it's great. It's sometimes some of the stuff you hear from fans is quite funny. If especially away grounds, like some of the stuff that people always shout on to you, it just can be quite nasty sometimes. But sometimes as well, it's really funny. Like, and you can just you start laughing. Like,
yeah. So obviously, a couple years in. 2010, Roy Hodgson comes in, and then around that time you became the club captain. What was that like? Was there any extra responsibilities or anything that else you had to deal with once you got that armband?
Just little things outside, probably more media bits and pieces around the place, but nothing too major. I think the squad of players we had a lot of like good, solid like characters in there, like leaders. Stephen Reid, myself, Gareth McCauley, Mozza to a certain extent. Mozza was always sort of a little bit quieter until he got on the pitch, to be honest. But there
was Jonas as well, obviously.
Jonas, yeah, Ben Foster, Gareth McCauley, Liam Ridgewell, people like that. It's sort of even Billy Jones as well. People like that. Like they were just sort of good, solid characters that just got on with their jobs. You didn't really need to.
Yeah.
You didn't really need to do much to get them going, really.
Yeah, I think that's a special thing with that team had, because you're all around a similar age, and obviously different players came and went. You had different ones who came in and maybe spent a season and then left, but that core for a long time like stuck it out, and it was so impressive. And it's something I think we took for granted because we were there for so long. But now looking back on it with hindsight, now that we're back in the championship and we've gone up and down once, I think it just shows how impressive it was that you guys managed to build that and keep that going.
Yeah, I think like you said, like we're all similar age, we're all similar stages of our career, trying to sort of stay in that league, and it sort of all fitted together nicely, didn't it? You know, we had a good group of lads that would have like did anything for each other on the pitch and in training, and obviously the manager as well. Like, you know, the way Roy had us trained and the way we were set up to play on a Saturday, you know, everybody knew each other's job inside out, and you know, it was hard work, but it was easy to play in. You know, we sort of knew if I made a mistake, somebody would be there to bail you out, and vice versa. And
Yeah.
no, it worked really well for the type of lads that we had in the squad. And like you said, there was the odd sort of flair player, obviously Peter on and Wingy, people like that had something a little bit different. Jerome Thomas, but like majority of the lads were good, solid pros that were trying to sort of make their way in the Premier League. And you know, obviously the manager really helped us be able to do that.
Yeah. So one thing, whenever I see someone who I know is cheering for a big Premier League club, the one thing I always like to say to wind them up is that West Brom had almost a decade with probably the best corner taker in the league. Now, I want to ask you, how much did you practice your corners? And obviously you did how many crosses? You made so many great passes. How much did you practice that on the training field? And would it be something you would go out to training and say, I got to do this, and this to feel good for the Saturday game?
Not massively practice. I mean, ever since I was a kid, I was always a good ball. I always struck the ball well, like, and I always took set plays from when I was 10 years old. You know, that was one of the big strengths of my game. And I think as well, because we were not relied on set pieces so much, but it was a good opportunity for us to score goals in the Premier League. You know, so it became important. So, you know, we spent a bit of time on the training ground on them. You know, maybe a day or two a week just after training. They might have, if the manager had something specific he wanted to try. But you know, I would always hit a few every couple of days after training, just to keep your eye in. Really, nothing major. You know, at the end of the day, once the ball's down in the game, it's a little bit different than doing it on the training ground. There's a bit more pressure on it. So, but look, the guy's really lucky that obviously the lads in the team, you know, you Gareth McCauley's, Jonas Olsen's, Ron Dons, Craig Dawson, people like that. Yeah, they were willing to just go and head the ball, like, and you know, even James Morrison as well. You know, if you put the ball in the right area, he would always get on the end of it. Like, it's we were very lucky with lads that actually wanted to go and head it, and I think over that period of time, that obviously that made me look a lot better, and you know, obviously the likes of Matty Phillips and that as well.
Yeah, and then there was the odd time where Matt Phillips would take the corner, and then who's getting on the end of it? Chris Brunt, right?
Yeah,
there's a couple of those where it was a bit of a weird one, because you know, you're expecting to see you at the corner, and
yeah, I never really. That was more when Tony Pulis was in charge. He never really, you know, at the start he tried to get James McLean taking the corners, and I sort of said to him after a couple of I think it might have been pre-season, you know, I was like, Gaffer, like I take corners, I've been doing it for years, and because he was playing me left back, he was like, oh well, I was sort of thinking you stayed at the back and you didn't have to run forward. I was like, well, like that's a strength of mine. Like, you might as well use it. So like, I think eventually he obviously came around to it. I'm not really sure what. I think he might have had a few ulterior motives to try and get me out of the team, to be totally honest. But look, and then obviously when Matty came in, he was taking him from one side and I was taking him from the other side, and we were dangerous from them. So I don't know how I ended up in the box. But to be fair, the odd time when I actually did go in the box, I usually got sort of somewhere near it, which is a bit weird because I wasn't really great at heading the ball for goal, but you know, sort of worked out.
There was since you mentioned it, I wasn't gonna mention it, but I would like to ask you a little bit about Darren Fletcher. Obviously, Darren Fletcher came in, you were the captain of the club, and then pretty much instantly he became the captain. Was there anything that happened there, or was it like an awkward conversation with Pulis, or?
No, there was never really any conversation with Pulis. He just sort of told you what was happening, and that was it. Like, you know, he No, I think every time a manager came in, I always went to him and said, "Look, it's your team. If you don't think I'm the right person to be captain, then that's fine. Somebody else. If you want to pick somebody else, that's fine." And I said it to Roy Hodgson. I said it to Steve Clark when he came in as well.
Yeah.
And I said it to Tony as well when he came in, and he said, "Oh no, it's fine." And then obviously when Fletch signed, he obviously he said straight away, he was like, "Oh well," he pulled me after training one day when we were walking off the training field and said, "Oh, what do you think about this? I'm thinking about Fletch, making Fletch captain. It'll give him a bit of a boost." And I
Yeah.
was like, "All right, okay, well, whatever you think." I said, "Obviously, he's been. The only thing is, it looks like you're sort of bombing me out." And he was like, "Oh no, well, I'll have a think about it." I said, "Well, have a think about it and let me know." And then the next day, he did it in the dressing room for
Yeah.
about 10 minutes before kickoff. Yeah, so it was a bit weird, but I scored in the game and set one up from a corner, like, so it's sort of. But look, it never really bothered me that much, to be totally honest, because it actually probably did me a favour, because it meant then Fletch had to go into his office and speak to him. It meant I didn't have to speak to him, which was good. So it sort of worked out all right.
Yeah, I mean, it's good, especially, I guess it would have mattered more if you were the club captain and you were the bona fide leader whipping the team into shape. But since, like you said, there was such a good team of, it almost sounds like a team full of captains, really. It doesn't really matter who has that armband.
Yeah, exactly. And to be fair to Fletch was perfect for it. Yeah, he was good around the place. He was good with all the younger lads. He was good with the staff and stuff. And like he was he was a
With the
decent
referee as well.
yeah, he was a decent fella. Like I had no problems with Fletch at all. Like I quite enjoyed playing with him. It was good for him. Do you know like how well he did for those 2 seasons to play all those games after obviously the illness he had and the time he had at Man United the time before. That's something that that deserves a great deal of respect, I think, from everybody. So it was nice to see him be able to do that and be involved playing with him. Like.
Yeah, he definitely helped the level of the club. He sort of played that facilitate in between the defense and in the midfield, sort of just moving the ball. He moved the ball very well.
Yeah, I think when he played for Man United, obviously, they obviously had a lot better players than what we did, like as individuals. So it probably, for him to come out and play for a sort of a more probably average team probably showed what a decent player he was. Yeah.
Yeah. So my next question for you is there a particular away spot that has been your favorite to travel to?
Away ground, you mean?
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's ever asked me actually. I always used to enjoy going to Coventry Stadium.
Oh, really?
Because I always scored there, and even when I was at Sheffield Wednesday, I scored a couple of goals there, and then I scored a couple of goals for West Brom when we went there. But then obviously they sort of fell off the face of the earth for a bit. But I think that, like I said, the older stadiums, your Goodison Parks and your Anfields and places like that.
Old Trafford's another one.
Not necessarily Old Trafford, really. I think Old Trafford it was probably almost too big, I think, by the time we got there. I think I just like the sort of more traditional grounds, obviously, like West Brom's ground, Villa Park, Molineux, places like that are like, obviously, like nobody, obviously West Brom fans wouldn't like to say it, but they're great stadiums to go and play. And
yeah,
I always enjoy playing at Villa Park as well, just because it's like an old traditional stadium. It's a bit like, it reminded me a bit of Sheffield Wednesday Stadium, I think.
Yeah, I like watching West Brom at the Molineux, especially the last couple of years. It's been quite enjoyable.
Yeah. I know they've come. To be fair, I never actually played for West Brom at Molineux. I was on the bench.
You were injured during the 5-1.
Yeah, I was on the bench once, and I was injured for the 2 other times. Yeah, I never actually got to play at Molineux. Yeah.
Were you there when they did the 5-1?
No, I was in. Where was it? I think I was at home just. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this is my cue. I mean, to talk about, obviously, the one time I've met you was at the US trip, which was a great experience for me. I totally fanboyed out during that. As you can probably imagine, I watched a video a couple of days ago. The club, I guess, asked Gareth McCauley if he would do a diary of the
Mm.
US trip, and he happened to have the video of you guys getting off the bus when you first arrived for training for that on that first day. And
Okay.
all you can hear is me saying, Bronte! Which is,
What age would you have been then?
oh, I would have been
12, 13.
not very old.
Yeah.
Yeah, around that age, 12, 13. Not through puberty yet.
Yeah.
But it was such a great experience for me. Obviously I can talk about, we got the shirts, I got this your training one, and this one's the one you wore, and then I got some autographs. That's the picture you signed for me there. But just to see you guys, and I grew up watching that, like your squad, and particularly seeing you and Maza, just was a great experience. And of course, without a doubt, it was the hottest day I've ever been a part of. That second game was Richmond, Virginia, and
Yeah.
I remember Jolien Lescott was sitting. We sat right behind the bench. Jolien Lescott was sitting right there. He had a backward baseball cap on, and he had his shirt over top of his head because of how hot it was, right? What was it like playing in conditions like that? I think he came off the bench. I don't know if you played the full.
No, I think I played. I think I started. I think I started the game, but yeah, look, I've been to Florida a few times just on family holidays and stuff. So I knew what I was expecting when I got there. But obviously, it's a bit different actually having to train and play games out there, because obviously we're not used to humidity like that. And the Orlando game, obviously on AstroTurf as well, it was something a bit different than what we were used to. But yeah, look, I sort of half knew what to expect. It was a good trip. It was, I love going to the States. I would go there tomorrow if I could. It's brilliant, and to be able to go there and play, and obviously for the likes of yourselves being able to sort of see teams when they come, because it obviously doesn't happen very often, especially for the sort of smaller teams like ourselves.
Exactly.
Like it's great going out to see that, because obviously we don't, as a sort of smallish Midlands club, no, not small Midlands club, but like a smaller team, you don't really,
the big clubs in England,
compared to your Liverpools and your Man Uniteds that go to Chelsea's, that go to America, go to the States every year. It's nice to go out and experience something different, and obviously meet different people that follow the football club. So no, like it was a great trip. But that game in Richmond was the hottest day I've ever. When we were warming up, because I remember saying to the doctor before the game, like, because all the games are usually a bit later, aren't they? They're usually, I think the other two games were like, possibly 8 o'clock or 9
o'clock. They were
8 o'clock at night.
Kickoffs. Like, it was dark in the first couple.
Yeah, the first couple were dark, and then the third game it was like 5 p.m.
Yeah.
And I remember saying to the doctor when we got there, I was like, Doc, you're gonna have to keep an eye on me here, because obviously I'm like really pale and like Irish, so like I don't do well in the heat, like. And he was like, oh no, don't worry, it'll be fine. And I can remember warming up and my feet like just burning in my boots. It was that hot. And like, fortunately enough, after about 10 minutes, there was a massive like electrical storm, wasn't there? And everybody had to sort of get out of the way for a little bit, so it sort of cooled it down a little bit. But yeah, it was horrible.
It's good, yeah. Like you said, it was such a rainy day. It was sort of a weird situation because my family traveled 22 hours to go to go to the game in Charleston, right? And of course, like you said, we did that because we knew that was sort of a once in a lifetime sort of opportunity. And then that second game, it was weird because it started to pour down rain and it started to thunder and lightning, but we weren't moving because we didn't
just
know
in case.
We didn't know when we were going to get the chance to see you again, and particularly see you that up close and personal. So we weren't gonna leave. We had some family who actually drove down just for that one game, and they were at a wedding that weekend, couldn't go to the first couple, and then drove down just for that game. And it started, but we were all just standing there. I remember we had some signs and they were just slowly dripping away, right? But I think it just adds to the experience of that trip, because it's always something that I'll remember. It's probably my favorite holiday I've ever taken. Um, that trip, and then obviously that you guys all coming over, giving your shirts away, and then you came right to me and gave me your shirt. It was
Yeah.
a great experience for us. Um, I'll switch gears again because I could talk about that trip all day, really. Um, so I'd like to ask you, obviously you played a whole bunch of positions throughout your career. You talked center mid, left wing, left back. Um, is there a position you thought was your best position?
Um, I was probably most comfortable playing wide left when I was younger, but then obviously I think when especially when Roy Hodgson was our manager, it suited him to have a more sort of midfield type player wide, if that made sense. And then obviously when Jerome Thomas signed, I got sort of shifted over to the right, which I didn't mind actually, because like my right foot's actually not. I'm pretty comfortable and I can use it. Like it's not like obviously I prefer to use my left, but like I could always get away with using it if I needed to, and it gave us a little bit of something different. Me coming inside and Billy Jones or whoever it was playing right back, and not necessarily Reedy, because it wasn't really Reedy's. That wasn't what he was there for, but it sort of gave us a little bit a different dimension. And I, to be totally honest, I quite enjoyed playing left back. As I got a bit older, I just thought it sort of suited my game and where I was in my career. You can see everything in front of you. And
I always thought you were a good left back. I thought so that in that Pulis team when you were surrounded by three center backs practically, it was a nice to have that one sort of attacking outlet. I felt.
Yeah, and it's sort of like it gave me sort of I when you're at the back, everything's in front of you. You can see everything on the pitch, and I think that really suited me because obviously I had a decent range of passing, and obviously Tony's teams, they're a bit more direct. You sometimes you're just getting it forward for the sake of getting it forward. When obviously it came to me, and I might have been able to pick a pass or like put my foot on it and sort of slow things down or calm it down a little bit. And I think it sort of suited me for the way we had, because obviously with James McLean in front of me, he was 100-mile-an-hour all the time, running everywhere, and it sort of probably helped him having me behind him as well, to sort of calm him down, I think.
Yeah. So you've mentioned him glowingly a couple of times. Roy Hodgson is obviously a manager he's my personal favorite West Brom manager. But would you say he's your favorite, or the manager who challenged you the most to be the best player you could be?
Yeah, I think out of all the managers I had in my career, he made me a more rounded player. Like, I think I mentioned it before when, all the lads when we went on the pitch, I could have played centre back and known what I was doing because of his coaching. I could have played centre forward. Maybe I wouldn't have been very good at it, but I would have known what he expected of me. It was perfect. And, I think everybody, like any lad that was there around that stage of the career, I'll tell you the exact same thing. They learned so much about the game off him, and he was a big factor in us being able to play in the Premier League for so many years.
Yeah, that's awesome. You were there long enough to, obviously, you've worn a whole bunch of different kits. I want to ask you, what's your favorite kit that you got to wear while at West Brom?
My favorite one?
I know it kind of blends because they're quite similar.
Yeah.
Style normally.
There was a away kit one year that we only wore it a couple of times. It was like I think it might have been that year we were sponsored. Was it Bodog? It was like an electric blue color with navy shorts.
Actually, I have it.
Yeah. I really like that kit, but we lost away to Swansea in it, and Roy didn't like it, so we never wore it again. We wore the red one instead.
That red one was also really nice.
Yeah, home kit's a home kit, isn't it? It's blue and white stripes. It was. I quite like the one. When it was the pinstripes. The white with the pinstripe. Which nobody really liked at start, but then I think somebody we were talking about the other day. It turned out it actually was one of the best selling ones they've ever had. I think
really
it was just something a bit different. But I think obviously the more traditional ones, the one you've got in the background there, was decent, and the one the season after that with the sky blue stripe down the side of it, I quite like that.
Oh yeah, I have that one too. See, I buy a kit every year.
Yeah,
and I like me a good striped kit. Obviously, this year it's going to be a bit different, but I think I'll get that black and red kit. I think that's
the black and red one's smart actually. The training gear is actually quite smart this year as well. It's grey too. It's nice.
now on a bit of an opposite side, I've always thought if you're at a football club and you get new kits, surely there's got to have been a kit where you're like, God, do I have to wear this for a whole year? Was there one shirt, and it's likely going to be an away or a third kit because the like you said, a home kit's a home kit.
Yeah.
Is there one where you're like, don't want to wear that?
Um, not massively. Like red probably never really suited me because I was such a red. Like when I
Yeah,
got the sun hit me, I just went red anyway. So it never really suited me anyway. But the yellow and green one a couple of seasons ago in the championship when we first went back down to the championship when Darren Moore was the manager.
yeah,
It had the collar. It was the same as the home one, and it was yellow and green, wasn't it?
yeah,
But the I was always a big one for shorts. Like I hated shorts that were too small, and
yeah,
those shorts were really short, and that sort of put me off that kit. I think
yeah,
that the whole Monday away one really because the shorts were too short.
yeah. I had that one too.
Uh,
Yeah, I have my name and number 11 on the back of that one.
oh yeah,
Because like I said, my soccer number was 11 because you were such a
yeah.
inspirational player for me. And I pretty much modeled my game after your game with all the crossing and I like to take a crack at goal, but my teammates
Yeah.
don't like that so much.
Yeah, I know.
Um,
Mine didn't either. To be fair.
so this might be the most difficult question for you. So here we go. Goals. You've scored so many good goals. I can think off top of my head, Everton free kick. That volley against Villa is possibly the best goal I've ever seen a West Brom player score. Um, I watched your highlight package a couple of days ago to just sort of get warm for it. But there's just so many good goals you've scored. Was there one that's your favorite that stood out for you, whether it's significance or beautiful, like a great goal?
Somebody asked me this last night. Actually, I was down at the football club last night, and I got asked this question, and I sort of always think like I always try to pick one when we won the game. Like it's nice to score a goal, but if you don't win the game, it sort of didn't have the same effect for me. Like so,
Yeah, I
obviously
don't
the
think you
Villa,
won
the
that
goal
game
I scored against.
Villa when you hit the volley.
Yeah, well, that's probably the best goal I've scored, but it doesn't bring back great memories for me that night because we should have won the game, and it was a sort of bad part in my West Brom career at that time
Yeah,
when obviously Pepe Mel came in. It was a bit of a shambles, really, to be honest. But I like, yeah, probably the one against Everton, the free kick, because I think that was the first time I'd scored a free kick in the Premier League as well, and obviously with a goalkeeper like Tim Howard in goals as well, it made it pretty special. But scored a decent volley against Spurs as well when I think somebody flicked it up in the air and it came out the back post. Yeah, so
yeah.
I never really got too carried away with goals, to be honest.
Yeah,
I
but
didn't
surely
score
you
enough.
gotta think when you score, even if it's just in training, when you'd be playing, when you've hit a beautiful goal, you gotta sometimes think, oh, I don't think I could have done any better with it.
Yeah, it's nice, obviously, to hit. It's obviously it's the same as everything. It's the same as every sport. Imagine baseball or golf or cricket or whatever it is. When you hit one well, you've hit it well. So yeah, it is nice. But nowadays the goalkeepers are so good as well. It has to be a proper. If you're going to score a good goal from far out, it has to be a good strike. And the goalies are so athletic nowadays.
Yeah. So obviously you've played in some big games for the club. Would you say there's one that's been your biggest game for West Brom?
Um, not massively. Like I tried to just treat every game as it came. Really, I didn't really think too differently about any game really. Obviously the playoff games a couple of seasons ago against Villa were big games, and obviously in the second game when I got sent off, that was a massive disappointment. But I think that game was no bigger than a sort of Premier League game. You needed to win to try and sort of get enough points to stay up. Everything's I suppose all relevant really.
Yeah.
I enjoy playing every Premier League game. A Premier League game always it has a different feel to it than a Championship game. I know sometimes when you're watching the Championship games, they're a bit more exciting than Premier League games, probably for the neutral. But as a player to be playing Premier League football, that's the the height of your career, really, and I used to enjoy every single one of them.
So obviously, one of my personal favorite games, it's gonna be up there with one of your bigger games as well. You came off the bench, the final game of your West Brom career
Oh,
against QPR. It was very much a emotional roller coaster. It was actually, yesterday was the 2-year anniversary of it. Yeah, 2-year. And
no, it was only a year.
oh, it's been a year. A year.
Yeah, it's been a year.
It feels
Yeah,
like it's been 2 years.
yeah, I know. It feels like it's been 10 years.
Um, tell me a little bit about what that experience was like. Obviously, did you know it was going to be your last game for the club?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think like I didn't really play much. I nearly went on loan to Stoke in January, and that sort of fell through because obviously the Stoke managers used to be the Northern Ireland manager, and
Yeah.
you know I was quite disappointed when that didn't happen because I hadn't really played at all
Yeah.
with Slavan, and you know I know coming to the end of my career I wanted to play as much as I could, and you know so until lockdown came the first time I didn't play at all from only in the 2 FA Cup games against West Ham and Newcastle.
Yeah.
And then after lockdown, I tried my best during lockdown to get as fit as I could because I thought, well, because I wanted to play on the following season, and I was pretty sure that West Brom weren't going to keep me on because obviously I'd not played, and then they told me that just before all the games started at lockdown. Luke Dowling pulled me and said they weren't going to offer me a contract, which was not. Look, it wasn't if it's been.
No.
I knew it wasn't going to happen. It wasn't a big surprise, so you know. I didn't. It wasn't a shock. So he asked me what I wanted to do. Obviously, because the way the COVID stuff was via contracts, you could have just walked away at the end of your contract, which was the end of July.
Yeah.
And then the start of July, sorry, because you had to sign a sort of an agreement thing to stay till the end of the season because obviously the season extended.
Yeah.
So I said obviously I was part of it. I wanted to stay and help and try and see if we got promoted. And you know, I wasn't involved in the first couple of games after lockdown because I hurt my knee in training,
Yeah.
and then we sort of stumbled a little bit, didn't we? And we trained one day at the stadium, and they were doing set plays against, and I was taking the set plays for the other team, and I put about 3 or 4 set plays in, and you know they were decent ones. I hit the post and stuff. They were just causing a bit of mayhem, like.
Yeah.
And the manager came straight over to me after training and he said, your knee's okay now? And I was like, yeah, it's fine. Thinking I was on my way home, like, because I wasn't involved. And then the squad list went out about 10 minutes later on a WhatsApp and I was in the squad. So I had to go back to the stadium and go on the bus to the game.
Yeah.
And then after that, I was involved in pretty much all the games and not really expecting to play. But then I think it was like we were home to Hull and there was about 20 minutes left and it got a bit chaotic. You know, when there was no fans in the stadium, there was no real pattern to the games. It was just chaos. Like it was it was like a training game almost. And he like I've been sitting on the bench. I'd had like 2 packets of biscuits and a cup of tea, and I was just sitting there like waiting. And it got a bit mayhem sort of in about 20 minutes to go. And he shouted, "Chris, you ready to go on?" And I was like, chucking biscuits out of my mouth, saying, "Oh yeah, no problem, yeah." So I ended up playing a couple of times. He put me on a couple of times, which was great because I wasn't expecting it. And then on the morning of the last game of the season, the QPR, he pulled a few of us into his office and said, "Look, if we need to win the game, this is what we're going to do." And I was like, "Why is he pulling me?" Because I was only a sub anyway. But obviously he was going to do something, and he put me on, which was great because I didn't expect to be on, and then to be on the pitch when we got promoted, it was great. And you know, it's sort of me knowing I was leaving probably helped everybody else because I was sort of relaxed because it didn't really, not that it didn't matter to me because obviously I wanted to get promoted and I wanted to win the game and for the club. But you know, all these lads were sort of, you know, a lot of them hadn't played in the Premier League.
It was a life or death situation for them, really.
Yeah, exactly. And they hadn't played in the Premier League before. And like for me, I had experienced that and I wanted them to experience it. So for me to be there to be able to help them do that was great. But without it meaning as much to me, if that makes sense. It probably helped in the situation because I was a lot more relaxed than a lot of them, I think.
Yeah.
So but look, once the whistle went and you sort of, you know, when you realize what's happened, and it was emotional, like, but You know,
Yeah.
I did well that I hit it for a couple of days, to be totally honest. And the only person that really, you know, obviously Jake Livermore was captain for most of the season, and you know, Jake's an emotional guy. He's at the best of times, and you know, seeing him on the pitch and like, you know, how happy he was and stuff like that, it sort of,
Yeah.
it made it worthwhile. Like,
Yeah. And there was that great picture that came out, and obviously you and Jake Livermore embracing, and it was one of those great moments, you know, because for me personally, um, I'm I'm a bit too young to remember the promotion days,
mm,
2008 and those years. So this was realistically the first real, oh my God, we've done it. We're going to the Premier League and we've won something watching West Brom for me. So it was very special. Um, did you get much of a chance to interact with the fans once obviously the ground and there was mayhem outside?
yeah, well, we sort of went outside for a bit, but it got like, obviously there wasn't really a big police presence because there was no fans at the game, so they didn't need anybody, and it got a bit much between us. You know, sort of, you know, we all had to sort of go back out of the way a little bit. But look, it was great because obviously it was such a bad 6 months for everybody everywhere worldwide, and you know, people
Yeah.
being able to come down and experience that, although they probably weren't supposed to with
Yeah.
all the restrictions and stuff. But it was brilliant for everybody, and you
Yeah.
know, obviously that being my last involvement with the football club, you know, that you know, it's something, you know, you're leaving on a positive. Whereas, you know, the season before, obviously I've been sent off in the semi-final playoffs and we lost to Villa. It would have been disappointing to
And
leave on that note, you know. So I'm glad it ended on a high. But you know, the manager he didn't play me as much as
yeah.
obviously hardly at all. But look, I've got a lot of respect for him. I think he was a decent guy. He always seemed pretty honest with me, and you know, even at the end of the game, when he came up to me after the game, he actually said to me, "Look, if you want to stay for another year, we can have a chat and see if you can sort something out." But
Yeah,
you
but
know,
you
like,
wanted to play. I'm sure
and
everyone
yeah,
understood
exactly.
that.
I didn't. Looking back at it now, I wish I maybe should have taken him up on it. But no, look, I wouldn't have wanted another year sitting doing the same thing what I did. But you know, maybe at the stage in my career, maybe would have been it maybe would have been a decent thing to do, to sit and to actually be around the football club in the Premier League with my experience of it. But you know,
Yeah,
that wasn't to be. But oh, look, obviously I went to try and play more football, and it didn't really pan out the way I would have wanted to at Bristol City. But you know, that's life. I've been pretty lucky with injuries, so you can't really argue.
it is interesting though, because you kind of went full circle. Your first promotion, the final game was against QPR, and then the second time you guys got promoted, the final game was against QPR. So it's almost it kind of
Yeah,
worked out perfect. It
it
was
was.
sort of a storybook ending if you think about it. With your
Yeah, it was really weird. Like, yeah, I never really thought much about it until somebody had said that actually. But no, it was like, it was great. It was a great way to leave the club. Like, you know, you've been. I've seen a lot of ups and downs, and it was nice to finish on that note. You know, and how much sort of, you know, happiness it made everybody around the place and all the staff, especially the staff as well, because
yeah.
you know, like, there's a lot of them have been there as long as I have been, and you know, they're good people, and it's nice to see them get rewarded for their hard work as well.
Yeah. Now I gotta ask you. I know we're getting a long interview in here, but I gotta ask you about your time playing for Northern Ireland, because it's something I haven't talked about yet. But I'm sure it was a pleasure for you. How can you explain that experience playing for your country?
Yeah, look, obviously growing up as a kid, it's all you want to do. I wanted to play in the Premier League, and I wanted to play for Northern Ireland, and look, with the same thing, we had a lot of bad times with Northern Ireland. You know, like, bad results, bad trips. Like, you know, it got to the stage it was a bit unprofessional the way we travelled and the way we sort of, where we stayed for games, where we trained, and then obviously Michael O'Neill took over, and I think it was about 20. When did Michael O'Neill take over? 2012, possibly, and things started to get gradually a bit better. You know, we had probably 5 or 6 of us played in the Premier League, and Michael always sort of interacted with us a lot about, like, sort of standards of things that we were expected, like, at their clubs and things, and tried to get the best of things he could for Northern Ireland. And you know, he made it he made it an environment where lads wanted to come. Whereas before, when we weren't winning games and things, you know, like you'd have done anything, maybe to say you were injured, so you didn't have to go, so you could stay at West Brom just to get some treatment and have a few days off and whatnot. But you know, Michael made it a lot more competitive. And then obviously, when you start winning games, then you've got chances to go to tournaments, and it makes it a lot more enjoyable as well. So those last 4 years I played for Northern Ireland were brilliant. It was some of the most enjoyable games I've had in my career, to be totally honest. I never got the chance to play in the Euros with my injury, and then obviously missing out in the World Cup when Switzerland beat us in the playoffs. That was by like, I don't know if you've ever seen it. It was like a really, really bad refereeing decision. He's given a handball against one of the lads that hit him in the back. So, you know, it's...
Well,
you know,
I used to be a referee, so I know all bad refereeing decisions. Whenever I would play as a referee, I feel like there's a right for me to say, no, that's not right, ref, dude.
Yeah.
And I never won that battle.
No. You'll never win a battle with a player on decision. You're always wrong, I think.
I know. And then obviously, you got the chance to play against some great players. Was there one player who you played against and it was particularly a matchup for you, 1v1, that was the most difficult?
Probably Germany. We played Germany at Windsor Park. Probably one of my last games for Northern Ireland. And Kimmich was playing right back.
Oh yeah.
And I was playing left back. But he was like a right winger, centre forward. Like he literally ran forward the whole game, and it was really, really difficult. But it was enjoyable as well, because like playing Germany the Germans were the best team in the world, and they literally asked questions of you wherever you were. Like, it was really, really good for us. It was. Yeah. But we had a game plan. We went into it, and we were like, right, because we were quite good in Belfast. We were strong defensively, and we could offset plays and stuff.
Yeah.
And the teammate and Michael was like, look, we need to, if we can keep it tight for 20 minutes, sort of settle it down a little bit, try and get the crowd going, we might cause them a few problems. We're a bit like what Tony Pulis used to do with West Brom, similar sort of style, obviously against the Germans.
Yeah.
And literally, I think Goretzka scored after 34 seconds. He hit one in the top corner from about 35 yards, and it was like, you know, the game plan's gone out the window already.
Yeah.
But it was just it was quite funny, you know. He came in after the game and he just started laughing about it, like, you know. But like, they were such a good team that they were brilliant. And you know, I played against Ronaldo for Portugal one night in Belfast as well, and he literally did nothing for 75 minutes and scored a hat trick in 10 minutes. You know, it's just frightening.
One thing I've always wondered, is there much interaction when you, especially in an international game where you're not really around, particularly the away team, you get the odd time where you're playing against players who are in the league with you or playing with players who are on your team. But like a player like Cristiano Ronaldo, you've never been around him before. Is there much interaction between you and other international players?
No, I think if you played in the Premier, you know, if you were playing against another national team, they had a couple of Premier League players, they might sort of say hello to you when you were playing or in the lineup before the game, but not really, unless you knew the people. Like, it wouldn't really. No, not overly.
He's a killer trash talker.
Ronaldo.
Yeah. I mean, he can back it up quite good.
Yeah, well, exactly. He can say whatever he wants. I don't think anybody's got any argument against him, really.
So a question for you. A couple weeks ago, you got a picture came out just after we announced Valerian Ismail, and I'm probably pronouncing it wrong, but
no, sounded all right to me.
With you, him, and Tony Bomber Brown. So I was wondering, how did that come to be that you got in a picture with the new coach so early, and obviously it must feel great to be in a picture with a legend and being thought of as the same class, right?
Oh yeah, of course. I mean to be asked to do stuff with Bombers, obviously, you know, everybody knows what a guy. He's a great guy as well. You know, I've met him a lot of times, spoken to him a lot. He's just a lovely man. You know, you wouldn't think he had the sort of career he had with all the sort of the stats and the statue outside the stadium, and he's so unassuming. It's unbelievable. But I think the club were just the manager wanted to meet people around the club, and he went to meet the foundation, the charity work that they do
Yeah.
across the road, and the academy and stuff like that. And the media guy texted me saying, "Oh, would you come in? The manager wants to. We're trying to do a little thing about sort of building the image of the club of what it's like." And he wanted to meet sort of. Well, I think he might have used the word legends, but I would never describe myself as that. Like, but I mean, he obviously with Bomber as well. You sort of it's a different era, but the manager wanted to meet us, and then he just came over and he started chatting about bits and pieces, and he seems a good guy. He's got a plan for going forward this season, so hopefully it works out well.
Yeah, what can you tell me about like first impressions of, obviously you're around, you've met him now. What can you tell us about the new manager?
He's big. He's a big guy. Like he seems very focused. He's got a way he wants to play, which should hopefully, if things go to plan, it should be exciting for everybody to watch. And he was quite quiet, a respectful guy. Like he didn't say he didn't. He seemed a decent fella. I've seen him a couple of times about the training ground when I've been there with the academy and stuff, and he just gets on with it. I think he's got a couple of, obviously he's brought a few staff members with him from Barnsley as well, so it'll be interesting to see how they get on. The season's obviously just around the corner, so hopefully they get off to a good start.
Yeah. So my next question for you, and I lied before, I think this is going to be the most difficult question. Is there one memory that sticks out as your favorite West Brom memory?
I think looking back on it, probably that first year when we got promoted, the Southampton game that night. That week for me personally was great. I scored on the Monday night, and then we had our first boy on the Wednesday. Charlie was born on the Wednesday.
Oh yeah.
And then I scored again on the Sunday when we got promoted. So
the baby celebrate.
Yeah, so that looking back on my career, that'll be a big. That's probably the biggest thing for me, and obviously it was the first opportunity I ever got to play in the Premier League.
Yeah, you scored 49 goals for West Brom, 24 of them in the Premier League, made 421 appearances, and 269 of those were in the Premier League. So those you were mentioning about legends. I think that's legend status for me. I don't know about anyone else, but that for me. That's totally legend status. My last question for you today is simply, what are you up to now? Are you doing the club, or?
I'm doing a little bit with the academy. I went in there after I finished at Bristol last year for a couple of months, just helping out with the under-23s.
Yeah.
I'm still doing bits and pieces of that this year, but a bit more part-time though. I've not really decided what I want to do, to be totally honest. I'm enjoying having a bit of time at home with the family, to be truthful. Weekends and stuff, obviously being involved in football, you don't really get a weekend, so
yeah,
it's nice for me to be able to be at home at the weekend with the kids. And my youngest plays on a Sunday morning, so it's nice to be able to go and watch him and take him training and stuff like that, and not be committed to anything at the minute. And playing a lot of golf.
That's good.
I've got well into my golf over the last couple of seasons, so it's but I'm sure I'll probably get bored at some stage and need something a bit more full time. But at the minute, it's sort of working out well. I think the academy are happy enough for me to drop in and out, and if I can help any of the lads in any way, shape or form, I can. But the club have still involved me in a couple of media bits and pieces, and I did a sponsors thing last night down at the stadium, so I'm sure I'll not be stuck for things to do.
Yeah. So, do you think coaching is sort of something you're interested in? I've heard it so many times when we were looking for a new coach. People wanted you and Maza, and I think honestly, I don't think that's something that is out of the question in the future. But would you think coaching is something you're interested in?
Yeah, I think I am interested in it. I'm doing my coaching licenses at the minute. So look, definitely. I think in the future I would definitely want to do it. But at the moment, like I said, my kids are still young enough that I for 20 years they've been sort of working around me. It's nice for me to be there for some stuff that they want to do at the minute, and my wife as well. Like, it's nice for,
Yeah.
well, I'm assuming it's nice for her to have me about, but I'm not too sure whether she'd agree with that. But you know, just little things like that I haven't been able to do when I've been away traveling with football and stuff. So look, I think eventually, yes, I would like to be a coach, possibly management, if if the opportunity ever comes up. But you know, I think there's a lot more to it than people see. You know, it's 24/7 football, and you know, at the minute I'm enjoying sort of taking a step back from football.
Yeah, it's definitely more than what people say. My uncle is the head coach for one of the local semi-professional teams.
Mm-hmm.
I live in a city called Guelph. It's about an hour away from Toronto, and I've seen what he does. He does a lot of work, a lot of scouting, a lot of
Yeah,
man management when it's needed, right?
yeah,
And it's just I personally get that it's more than just, oh, show up on Sunday and show up Saturday, Sunday, do your game, maybe do 1 or 2 practices a week, you know.
no, absolutely not.
It's not, you know, but
Yeah,
anyway, so that's gonna wrap it up for the interview. Thanks, Chris, obviously. Um, I really appreciate you taking the time to chat with me today. It
no
means a lot.
problem.
You're my favorite West Brom player, and will continue to be that player for me for a long time. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. It was good to chat to you.